One of the most difficult things when you first start investing in stocks is understanding risk. There's so many risks involved in stock investing in general, but also specific stocks, and it's hard to understand all of them. I'm not going to cover every single risk associated with stocks in this video. I wish I could. That is not possible. There's so many different ones, small and large alike. However, I'm going to try to cover a lot of the key ones. The first one being TSM, right? TSM in itself isn't a super risky stock. It's fairly normal. However, the reason I'm covering this is TSM is my favorite stock. I've said on this channel numerous times. I've owned it for a while now, since early 2021, and the last year I've done very well on it, right? However, even though this is my favorite stock, I only own so much of it. Only makes up a certain percentage of my portfolio, not a huge amount, right? Even though it's my favorite stock, I believe in it, I love it, whatever it may be. I don't want, some absurd amount of my investment tied up into it or wealth in general, right? Because anything could happen with a specific stock. They could be cooking the books and no one realizes it, or they could be making dumb decision, or maybe the leadership quits the next day and just downhill. You don't know. Anything can happen. All those are very small, but even if it's a 0.1% chance, 0.01% chance of something really dramatic happening, you don't want to lose, 12, 15, 20% of your wealth tied up in one stock. And I see this. It's more common than you think. Certainly with people new, that's like, okay, if you're talking about money less than 10,000, even maybe less than 50,000 and you're young, you can have a larger percentage of your portfolio in one specific stock if you really have a high risk tolerance. However, you don't want to miss out on retirement or delay your retirement or anything like that because you bet too much on one stock, right? That's just not a smart move, right? So you have to diversify. We're going to get into that later. Another risk is associated with high growth, right? I like Vertiv, whatever. I think it's a good stock long term. It has gone up an insane amount, but it's increased profitability 500% over the last 2 years. So you expect a stock like that to do that. And it's also been growing revenue pretty dramatically, and it's in a really key industry. So that explains why the PE is so high. Forward PE is somewhere in the 40 to 50 range, depending on what metric you use. However, you have to understand that there's risks associated with high growth. If they were to stop growing fast and start growing like a normal company, you would probably lose half the value of the stock, just because if it's valued like a stock that's expected to grow a lot and it no longer does that, you're going to lose some value, right? Or if you have a lot of high growth stocks in your portfolio and there's a recession or something similar, maybe money's really moving out of that industry, whatever happens politically, something, right? Small percent, but it happens. It does happen in the market. There are years where that happens. You are going to get hit dramatically hard. Even if your underlying business is doing well or great, the perception of the stock sometimes will drag it down, right? And we can see that also embodied in a stock like NIL. The risk I'm specifically getting here is PE. No PE. This was a high growth speculative sort of play, right? It's also an EV out of China. This was my third video ever. It actually decently blew up. There were some people not happy in the comment section. It was at about 6 or something, and I said, I don't like this as a long-term hold. It's not for me. But the point we're getting here, I'm just trying to say I'm right, but the point I'm getting at here is another thing: high growth, certainly not profitable high growth, is going to get even more destroyed in the recession. So you have to be careful with that. Also understand the risk associated with, non-profitable companies, because they're going to get hit harder. So we can diversify out of that with value companies, right? Something like Caterpillar, right? PE, S&P 500 is about 27. 18 isn't like ridiculously cheap. However, this is a company that has done well. 5 years outperformed the S&P 500, right? Last 10 years, right? 4x, something like that, also outperformed the S&P 500, and it pays a decent dividend. So this is a stock that is cheaper than the S&P 500 and has done pretty well. This is a decent diversification pick. It's also one of the leaders in the industry. You can probably expect it to do well. Now, I'm not saying your entire portfolio needs to be Caterpillar. I love stock. Most of my portfolio is tech. I love tech. Most of my portfolio is tech, but it only makes up a certain percentage, and I diversify into other industries as well, just in case these sort of stocks start doing well and tech doesn't for whatever reason, like we saw recently with stocks like utility stocks like Dukes did very well. I bought some, around here we can see specifically in something like Vici, but as rates have been perceived to drop, and they have, REIT stocks and utility stocks have done very well because people are like, hey, these are companies that rely a lot on debt, with rates dropping, that's good for them. So perceptions, and then also a lot of techs have rebounded. Some have kept going up, right? I'm trying to find a good example, right? A lot of tech stocks hit highs here and then kind of tapered off. TSM and Vertiv have specifically outperformed a lot of tech because they're just good companies. But we see that a lot in these where certain industries get inflated, and also decent dividend, just collect that sort of thing. It's just diversification. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. And the same thing goes for industries as well, right? If you own, tech is broad, but if you own a bunch of data center stuff and then all the big data center companies are on hard times and they start investing, or maybe they're looking somewhere else, that could hurt you. And don't get me wrong, I'm so bullish on data centers, but you never know. So you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to get destroyed because the industry specifically, or all the similar companies are just getting demolished for a certain time period. Ideally, I don't know. Ideally, you'll have money to move into it, and that's what you can kind of shift money around, right? Another one we see, like Procter & Gamble, right? Procter & Gamble is a very good recession hedge, right? Almost all stocks aren't going to do well during recession. The best recession hedge is cash, right? Because you can move it in. However, we print a lot of money in the United States. The entire world prints money, their currency. That's just how things work. You're going to lose 2 to 3% every year. And if the recession occurs in 8 years instead of 1 year, your cash that you're holding is going to get absolutely demolished. Now, is Procter & Gamble perfect during recession? No, when everyone's liquidating 401ks, people are just mass selling like during COVID, it's going to go down. But in an extended recession, the underlying business is going to do good. Laundry detergent, dish soap, right? Diapers. People are going to need to spend money in that. If people can't afford diapers and soap en masse, you have a lot bigger things to worry about than some stock you own, right? I'm not saying there's always going to be people that struggle with that. That's not what I'm getting at. You know what I mean. I think all of you know what I mean there. But Procter & Gamble is a good recession hedge because it's going to go up, right? Generally, historically it has. You can zoom out. It goes up. It pays a decent dividend, and the underlying business will do good during a recession. Now, all that to say, there's so many different risks you can get into. One more I'm going to cover is options, right? I personally do not do options. I'm never going to, even if I think something maybe deserves some options used on it one way or another. The main reason I don't as an investor, right, and this is going to seem a little dumb to some of you, but I don't like it as an investment. I like it, it's okay as a hedge, but options aren't really investing because even if you're right, you can be wrong. Now, you can always kind of be right and wrong. But for example, let's just say your option's expiring during a specific time period. The company's doing great, and then a recession hits and it's down in the short term, right? But that's just when your options expire, you're holding it. You can just get absolutely destroyed on a company you're right about, even though, the downturn, like for example, TSM, right? Let's just say, I don't even know how leaps work, but I think you can do 1 to 2 year leaps, right? If you bought leaps here, right? 2021, they expired in 2022 or whatever, you would get absolutely clobbered, even though the underlying business was doing fine. In the long term, you would have done well. Now, you can always diversify out of that. Just personally for me, I'm not a big options guy. However, this isn't a video on options. If you're using options, you have to understand the risk that's associated with it. 90% of options lose value, right? Not all of them expire worthless, but 90% lose value. Now, the ones that make value make a lot of value. And there's nothing inherently wrong with options other than you have to understand the risk associated and kind of know what you're doing, right? That sort of thing. So we can get into 100,000 more different little risky things. However, I think I've covered what I wanted to, at least broadly, in this video. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments, except for should I do blah, blah, blah with stock. I don't give any personalized stock advice because every situation is different. However, if I was broad on any of these topics or unclear, I would love to clarify down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy and watch the whole thing, I would appreciate it if you left a like. It means a lot and helps the video performance out, along with subscribing. I do daily stock content on this channel. Whenever someone subscribes, I often see YouTube push out the video a lot more, and it just does well in general. But anyways, I appreciate all of you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.